The old school loomed in the fading light, its brick walls whispering secrets of centuries past. Students spoke in hushed tones about a teacher who never truly left, Mrs. Kyle. Over 300 years ago, she was a devoted teacher, but her life took a dark turn. Her husband, consumed by jealousy and fear, chained her in the attic, punishing her for reasons no one fully understood. Some say he even buried her twice, yet somehow her spirit refused to rest. The stories began as whispers among students, passed down through generations. Some claimed to hear footsteps echoing in empty hallways, long after the last bell. Others spoke of icy drafts brushing their necks when no windows were open, or doors slowly creaking shut on their own. The legend was terrifying, yet strangely compelling, woven into the very fabric of the school's history. Teachers and staff sometimes mentioned unusual occurrences: faint voices calling a name, cold spots in otherwise warm rooms, objects moving for no reason. Skeptics dismissed these as tricks of the mind, but the fear in the eyes of those who experienced it was undeniable. Students learned to tread carefully, especially near the attic, where Mrs. Kyle had spent her final days in chains. Even today, the story is retold with a shiver, leaving a question lingering in everyone's mind. Was she really gone, or does her spirit still wander the halls, waiting for someone to disturb her eternal vigil? The legend of Mrs. Kyle is not just a tale from the past. It is a warning, a shadow that stretches through time, haunting anyone who dares to step too close. Late at night, the school fell silent, but some nights were different. Students returning late for study sessions reported strange sounds, soft whispers that seemed to float through the halls. One night, a group of students stayed behind to finish a project. As the clock struck midnight, a cold wind swept through the corridor, even though all the doors and windows were tightly shut. The lights flickered, and a faint shadow appeared at the end of the hallway. They froze as the shape slowly moved closer, a tall figure draped in tattered clothing, her face pale and hollow. The students whispered the name they had been warned never to say aloud: Mrs. Kyle. One of them felt a sudden, icy hand brush against their shoulder, though no one was near. Panic set in. They ran, but the sound of chains dragging along the wooden floor followed them, echoing through the halls long after they reached the exit. Teachers later confirmed that strange noises were reported that night, even though the school had been empty for hours. Some staff described hearing faint sobbing or scratching at the attic door, where Mrs. Kyle had once been imprisoned. Others claimed to see fleeting glimpses of a woman staring from the top floor windows, her eyes hollow, her expression haunting. The legend was no longer just whispers. Every sighting, every eerie sound reinforced the chilling belief that Mrs. Kyle's spirit had never left. The students learned a harsh truth. The school itself seemed to remember her suffering. And for those who dared to stay after dark, the warning was clear. Some ghosts do not rest, and some stories are never finished. The attic was the heart of the legend, the place where Mrs. Kyle's torment had begun and, some believed, never ended. Few students dared to climb the narrow stairs leading to it, and those who did often returned pale, their voices trembling as they spoke of the unbearable silence that hung in the air. The door, old and warped, seemed heavier than it should have been, resisting any attempt to open it. Some swore it whispered warnings when touched, as if the house itself tried to keep them away. Inside, the air was cold and stale, carrying the faint scent of old wood and decay. Stories told of rusty chains still dangling from the beams, remnants of the cruel punishment she endured. At night, the faint echo of clinking metal could be heard, though no one else was near. Some claimed to see a shadow sitting silently in the corner, her eyes hollow, staring at anyone who dared enter. The feeling of being watched was almost suffocating, as if the attic itself breathed with her anger. The legend said that she had been buried twice, yet her spirit returned each time, stronger and more restless. Those who had ventured near the attic spoke of sudden drops in temperature, whispers calling their names, and objects moving of their own accord. Even the bravest students admitted they could feel her presence, a constant reminder that some suffering never ends. The attic was more than just a room. It was a warning, a place where the past refused to die. Anyone who lingered too long felt an invisible weight pressing down, a chilling reminder that some spirits are bound not by chains, but by rage and sorrow. And for Mrs. Kyle, centuries had done nothing to quell the fire that kept her tied to the halls of the school. It was a rainy evening when Emma, a senior known for her curiosity, stayed late to finish an art project. The halls were empty, silent except for the distant drip of water from the leaky roof. As she packed her supplies near the attic stairs, she felt it. A sudden, icy chill that wrapped around her like a hand she couldn't see. Her breath quickened. A faint whisper echoed from above, soft but urgent. "Leave now?" She froze, telling herself it was just the wind. Yet the sound of chains dragging across the wooden floor made her blood run cold. Slowly, her eyes traced the staircase upward. There, at the top, a shadow moved. A figure of a woman, her hair long and tangled, her eyes dark voids that seemed to pierce right through her. Emma's heart pounded. She couldn't look away. Suddenly, the attic door creaked open by itself, revealing the faint outline of Mrs. Kyle standing silently in the doorway. The temperature plummeted, frost forming on the floor, and a heavy sense of dread pressed against Emma's chest. She stumbled back, tripping over her bag, and the shadow followed, silent, relentless, and impossibly close. A voice whispered her name, closer now, almost behind her, though no one was there. Panicked, Emma bolted toward the exit, the echo of clanking chains following her all the way down the hall. When she finally burst into the night air, soaked from the rain, she dared one last glance at the building. A single shadow lingered at the top window, motionless, watching. Emma never stayed late again, but she could never forget the feeling. Mrs. Kyle had found her, and for a moment, she had been trapped in the same cold, unforgiving grip that had held the teacher centuries ago. Since Emma's terrifying encounter, reports of strange activity began to multiply. Students whispered about doors slamming shut on their own, lockers opening slowly with no one around, and cold spots that made them shiver even on warm days. Some claimed they saw a tall, shadowy figure in the hallways, always watching, always silent, vanishing the moment anyone tried to approach. One night, a group of janitors working late swore they heard dragging chains echoing from the attic. When they checked, the door was locked, yet the sound persisted, growing louder before abruptly stopping. Teachers reported that lights flickered in rooms that had been empty for hours, and computers turned on by themselves with no power surges. Even the oldest staff admitted the air sometimes felt heavy, as though someone or something was breathing alongside them. Students who dared to speak openly about the sightings often found themselves laughed at, but the fear never truly left them. Some reported waking up with scratches on their arms, cold handprints on their shoulders, or a sudden whisper of their name in the middle of the night. It seemed that Mrs. Kyle's presence was growing stronger, her spirit no longer content to linger in the shadows. The legend that began as a cautionary tale had transformed into something far more sinister. The school itself had become a stage for her lingering rage, a place where past and present collided. Those who stayed after hours knew the truth. The spirit of Mrs. Kyle was not a story meant for bedtime. It was a warning, a reminder that some souls never rest, and some darkness is eternal. The story of Mrs. Kyle's double burial was the darkest chapter of the legend. According to whispers passed down through generations, her husband had buried her once in the family plot. But shortly after, mysterious events began to plague the town. Crops failed, animals went missing, and neighbors reported seeing a pale figure wandering the streets at night. Convinced she was cursed, her husband exhumed her body, only to bury her a second time in a different location. Yet, even after the second burial, the disturbances continued. People claimed to hear her voice calling from empty fields, faint scratches on the coffins, and a chill that lingered long after the soil had been replaced. Some theorized that her spirit had never accepted death, that the torment she endured in life, being chained, isolated, and betrayed, anchored her to the world of the living. In the school, the attic where she had suffered became the epicenter of her unrest. Students reported hearing faint cries as though someone was trapped beneath the floorboards, whispering their sorrow into the empty hallways. Teachers occasionally felt cold hands brush past them when no one was near, and items would vanish only to reappear in impossible places. The double burial was not just a story of cruelty. It was the beginning of a haunting that refused to end. The chilling truth lingered in every corner of the campus. Mrs. Kyle's spirit was not bound by the grave. Her suffering had left a mark that no amount of time could erase, and her presence reminded everyone that some tragedies are too powerful to remain buried. In recent years, the legend of Mrs. Kyle has refused to fade. Students staying late for extracurricular activities often report strange encounters that cannot be explained, and some hear whispers calling their names in empty classrooms, while others feel sudden chills as if someone is walking right behind them. One senior, staying after hours to study in the library, swore she saw a figure at the end of the hall. A woman in old-fashioned clothing, pale and silent, her eyes hollow and unblinking. Even cameras installed for security have caught inexplicable footage. Shadowy figures appear in hallways where no one should be, doors open and close on their own, and objects seem to float for brief moments before dropping back to the ground. Teachers and staff occasionally report hearing footsteps climbing the attic stairs, even when the building is completely empty. The most unsettling encounters involve a faint, sorrowful voice repeating the same words, "I'm still here." The fear is not limited to just a few brave students. Entire classrooms have experienced sudden drops in temperature, and some students refuse to enter certain halls after dark. Parents visiting the school sometimes sense an uneasy atmosphere, heaviness in the air that cannot be explained. Each new account adds another layer to the legend, proving that Mrs. Kyle's spirit is far from dormant. The haunting is no longer just a story. It has become a living reality. The halls of the school remember her suffering, and those who dare linger after hours discover that some spirits do not forgive, do not forget, and certainly do not rest. Mrs. Kyle's presence remains, eternal and unyielding, a chilling reminder that some tales of the past never truly end. A few brave or reckless souls decided to confront the legend of Mrs. Kyle head-on. Paranormal investigators, students armed with flashlights, and even curious teachers ventured into the attic, determined to capture proof of her existence. Each attempt ended in terror. The moment they crossed the threshold, the air would turn icy, their breath visible in the darkness. Chains that had long since rusted seemed to rattle, as if moved by unseen hands. One investigator described feeling a sudden, heavy weight pressing on his chest, making it almost impossible to move. He heard a soft sobbing from the corner, followed by a whispered warning, "Go!" before it's too late. When he shone his flashlight, nothing was there. But the sound persisted, moving closer, circling him with silent menace. Others reported objects thrown across the room, doors slamming shut without warning, and glimpses of a pale figure vanishing into the shadows. Even electronic equipment behaved strangely. Cameras would stop recording or capture static-filled images of a tall woman with hollow eyes. Recorders picked up faint voices repeating the same chilling phrase, "I'm still here." The investigators often left shaken, some refusing to return, others claiming they had been touched by unseen hands. It became clear that Mrs. Kyle's spirit was not just a passive presence. She was aware, watching, and unafraid to make herself known to anyone who dared to intrude. The legend of the chained teacher had grown into a living nightmare, a haunting that tested the courage of anyone who tried to uncover the truth. The attic was no longer just a part of history. It was a warning, a place where the line between the living and the dead blurred, and where curiosity could come at a terrifying cost. That night, something changed. It wasn't just Mrs. Kyle anymore. Multiple students reported seeing fleeting shadows moving together, whispers overlapping in a chorus of anguish, and doors slamming simultaneously across the hallways. It was as if the school itself had become alive, feeding on fear and amplifying her presence. Those who stayed after hours spoke of seeing her figure accompanied by faint silhouettes of other figures, perhaps spirits trapped by tragedy like hers, drawn to the same restless energy. A student working late in the science lab felt the temperature drop suddenly. Frost formed on the windows despite it being a warm spring night. The lights flickered violently, and a chorus of soft, sorrowful whispers filled the room, repeating phrases like, why did you leave me? And go or stay forever." Panic gripped everyone as chains rattled from the attic above, echoing through the halls, louder than ever before. In the library, books fell from the shelves in a precise, deliberate pattern, forming what looked like the outline of a woman. Students ran for their lives, but as they fled, glimpses of a pale face with hollow eyes appeared at the windows and stairways, silently following them. Even outside, the air felt heavy, as though something had crossed the threshold with them. It became impossible to deny. Mrs. Kyle's spirit had grown more powerful over the centuries. The school was no longer just haunted. It was a battleground between the living and the restless dead. And anyone who entered after dark faced the chilling reality that some tragedies are eternal, some spirits unforgiving, and some places are never meant to be forgotten. Even after the chaos of that night, the legend of Mrs. Kyle refused to end. Students whispered that if you stay too long after dark, she watches from the shadows, waiting for someone to disturb her eternal vigil. Some claim her hollow eyes can follow you even outside the school, appearing in reflections, windows, or the corner of your vision, vanishing the moment you turn. A final terrifying detail keeps everyone on edge. Those who experienced her presence often report seeing faint imprints of chains on the floors where no one had walked, and cold handprints on walls that cannot be explained. One senior swore he saw her standing at the top of the attic stairs, silently mouthing words he could not hear. When he blinked, she was gone, but a faint whisper lingered in his ear. "Next time you won't leave." The story that began over 300 years ago has never truly ended. Each new sighting, each unexplained noise, proves that Mrs. Kyle's spirit is still very much alive, bound by rage and sorrow that death could not contain. The school's walls remember her suffering, and anyone who dares stay too long risks becoming part of the tale themselves. Her legend is more than a story. It is a warning, a reminder that some ghosts do not rest, some tragedies refuse to fade, and some places hold their darkness forever. For those who walk the halls after hours, the question remains: will you simply leave, or will you join the spirits trapped in Mrs. Kyle's eternal prison? A strange stillness hangs over El Paso High School, a building that has stood on a hill in Texas for more than a century. Its stone walls watching generations come and go. Deep in its history are whispers of something that should not be there, something that makes even the bravest stop in their tracks when its name is spoken. Among the school's long corridors and old classrooms, there is one legend that chills the blood more than any other. The tale of a ghostly girl in white who appears in photos and, some say, in the shadows of the school itself. The most famous piece of evidence is a yearbook picture from the 1985 graduating class. In that image, among rows of smiling students and teachers, there is one figure that seems out of place. A young girl in a white dress, blurry and faint compared to everyone else. What makes it unsettling is that, according to those who knew the class, no one remembers her ever being there, and school staff has claimed she was not even in the original film negative, only appearing when the photograph was developed. To this day, no one knows who she was or why she appears there. This mystery does not end with a single image. Stories from locals and alumni tell of other photos taken years later where a face seems to watch from a window, eerily similar to the girl in the yearbook. These sightings have fueled the belief that something supernatural is tied to the school's past, something that lingers unseen but captured in unexpected places. The history of El Paso High School stretches back over 100 years, and with that long past come stories that refuse to fade. Students who walk these halls talk about more than old classrooms and dusty lockers. They speak of an unseen presence, a feeling that someone is always watching from just out of sight. Many say that at night, when the school is quiet and empty, the silence feels too heavy, like a breath held for far too long. One of the most repeated claims from former students involves the basement and old parts of the building. Some alumni say they once ventured down there after school and felt an unnatural chill, even in the hottest Texas weather. In those lower halls, far from the squeak of classroom doors and laughter of teenagers, Visitors report the kind of quiet that feels alive, as if the walls themselves are listening. A few insist they heard whispers that stopped as soon as they tried to understand them. Others mention rooms that were sealed off long ago, spaces where time seems to have stayed frozen. Some say that in these forgotten areas, shadows move in the corner of the eye, and doors open without a push. The eerie feeling draws you deeper into the mystery, and makes one wonder what happened here that left such a heavy mark. Some former students speak about the figure they call the Lady in White, a quiet shape seen on the upper balcony when the sky turns dark. They say she stands still, looking out over the empty street, as if waiting for someone who never returned. Alumni stories describe her dress as pale and faded, and her face impossible to see, like a memory that refuses to come into focus. Some believe she was once a student whose life ended in grief, a tragedy that tied her spirit forever to the school. According to several written accounts and local reports, people who tried to approach the balcony found no one there, even though they were certain they had seen her only moments before. Others claim that on quiet nights, a soft cry echoes near that same spot, drifting through the air before fading away as if swallowed by time. These stories have been repeated for decades, passed from one generation of students to the next, each adding to the fear that the Lady in White is more than just a tale. Some alumni connect this figure to the mysterious girl in the yearbook photo, the same pale presence appearing in pictures where no living person remembers her being. Whether she is a symbol of loss, a lingering soul, or something we cannot explain, one thing remains certain. Her presence has become a part of the school's identity, a shadow woven into its history. Over the years, more than just stories have made El Paso High School infamous. Photographs taken by alumni and visitors have captured strange anomalies. Face appearing in windows, shapes in hallways, and shadows that seem to shift on their own. In some cases, students noticed a figure resembling the Lady in White in their yearbook photos, standing behind friends who swear they never saw her in real life. The most unsettling part is that these figures often disappear when the negatives are examined, leaving only a ghostly imprint in the developed picture. Teachers and staff, too, have shared experiences that defy explanation. Footsteps echo in empty halls, doors creak open without cause, and the air suddenly grows cold for no reason. Some report hearing whispers or faint giggles, particularly near the older parts of the building. Those brave enough to stay after hours say the feeling of being watched intensifies, as though the school itself is alive and aware. Even visitors who come just to see the historic architecture claim a sense of unease, as if something from the past refuses to let go. Every shadow, every unexplained sound adds to the growing belief that El Paso High School is not just haunted. It is a place where the past lingers, unseen but undeniable. Some of the most chilling encounters come from those who tried to investigate the school at night. Paranormal enthusiasts who brought cameras and recording equipment often report capturing inexplicable phenomena. Flickering lights, sudden drops in temperature, and footsteps echoing in empty corridors are common. One investigator even claimed to have seen a faint, white silhouette glide across the upper balcony, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Students who stayed late for sports or music practice occasionally describe seeing fleeting shadows in the hallways, moving against the natural flow of light. Some say they felt a hand brush against their shoulder, only to find no one there. These experiences have been shared for decades, giving the school a reputation that draws curiosity seekers as much as it inspires fear. Even alumni who left years ago claim that the memory of the Lady in White never fades. Some return to the campus just to feel the weight of her presence again, sensing that the ghostly figure continues to linger, watching from the past, quietly reminding everyone that some stories refuse to die. Among the strangest claims are those tied to the yearbook photos. Alumni recount seeing a girl in white standing behind groups of students, a figure no one remembers attending classes. In some photos, she appears blurred or semi-transparent, almost as if she exists between two worlds. Even more unsettling, when the original negatives were examined, the figure was often missing, leaving only the image that had already terrified those who saw it. This phenomenon is not limited to one era. Newer photos taken by curious visitors and alumni alike have captured similar ghostly faces in windows or hallways, often resembling the same girl in white from decades earlier. These recurring sightings suggest that the presence is not tied to a single moment in time, but continues to haunt the school's corridors and memories, leaving unanswered questions for anyone brave enough to look closer. Some skeptics try to explain these anomalies as camera errors or reflections, but many who experience them firsthand insist that something beyond the ordinary is at work. The mystery lingers, growing darker with every retelling. As the years passed, the story of the lady in white continued to spread beyond El Paso, catching the attention of ghost hunters and paranormal researchers. Some came with high-end cameras and audio recorders, hoping to capture proof of the unexplained. They set up equipment in the old classrooms and long hallways, waiting silently through the night for something to happen. Many of these investigators claimed that their devices picked up strange sounds, whispers, knocks, and voices that faded as soon as anyone tried to listen closely. One veteran investigator described standing alone in a silent corridor when his recorder suddenly captured a soft voice calling a name he couldn't understand. At the same moment, a cold breeze swept past him even though all the doors were closed. He later checked the footage and saw nothing in the video, only the audio anomaly. Incidents like these made even skeptics raise eyebrows, wondering if something unseen was trying to communicate. Other teams reported temperature drops in specific spots, especially around the balcony area where so many sightings originated. Even on warm nights, their thermal cameras showed cold patches that couldn't be explained by drafts or equipment error. These strange recordings and events only deepen the mystery, leaving many to ask. Is the lady in white a restless spirit tied to the school, or something we still don't understand? Some of the most unnerving accounts come from those who experienced the presence firsthand. Alumni describe walking through empty halls late at night, only to feel a sudden weight on their shoulders, a cold touch, or a sense that someone is walking just behind them. In some cases, students reported seeing a shadowy figure at the end of a corridor, disappearing the moment they tried to approach. Teachers, too, have shared similar stories. One longtime faculty member recalled hearing echoes of footsteps and laughter in the gymnasium long after the last practice ended. Another mentioned doors opening and closing on their own, sometimes accompanied by faint giggles that seemed to come from nowhere. Each of these experiences reinforces the idea that the school is haunted by something unseen, yet aware of those who enter. Even those who doubt ghosts admit to a growing sense of unease when wandering the halls at night. The combination of historic weight, unexplained occurrences, and the recurring image of the lady in white creates an atmosphere that is impossible to ignore, leaving many to wonder if some spirits never truly leave. Some claim that the lady in white is not limited to just fleeting appearances. She seems to linger in certain places, especially near the old balcony and the classrooms that have remained mostly untouched for decades. Students who venture close to these spots report a sudden drop in temperature and a feeling of being watched, as if eyes unseen are tracking every movement. There are also stories of doors opening slowly on their own, long corridors that feel impossibly longer at night, and faint whispers that vanish the moment someone turns their head. Some even describe seeing her reflection in windows or mirrors, though nothing appears when they look directly. These unexplained phenomena suggest that the school is not just a building haunted by memories, but a place where the past and present collide, leaving a permanent mark on anyone who spends enough time within its walls. Whether she is a spirit trapped by tragedy, a residual echo of history, or something entirely unknown, the lady in white continues to haunt El Paso High School, drawing curiosity, fear, and unanswered questions from every generation. The mystery deepens with modern sightings and photographs. Visitors and alumni who return to the school often report capturing ghostly images in unexpected places. Faces appearing in windows, shadows on walls, and figures that vanish when examined closely. Some of these images bear an uncanny resemblance to the girl in the yearbook, suggesting that her presence spans decades, refusing to be confined to a single moment in time. Even without photographs, the eerie atmosphere remains. Hallways feel longer at night, classrooms grow inexplicably cold, and whispers echo where no one stands. Staff and students alike describe a weight in the air, a sense of being observed by something unseen. These experiences, repeated over generations, have cemented the school's reputation as one of the most haunted in Texas, a place where the line between the living and the dead seems to blur. The Lady in White is no longer just a story. She is a presence woven into the history of the school, a silent witness to the passage of time and the lives of those who walk its halls. The legend of the Lady in White continues to captivate and terrify those who hear it. Many alumni and visitors admit that even years after leaving the school, the memory of her presence lingers, a chilling reminder that some mysteries do not fade with time. People who have photographed her, heard her whispers, or felt her gaze describe an unshakable sense of unease, as though the school itself holds onto her story and refuses to let it go. The Lady in White has become more than just a ghost. She is a symbol of the unexplained, a figure bridging the past and present, appearing in yearbooks, photographs, and fleeting shadows. Whether a spirit trapped by tragedy or a mysterious force that defies explanation, her presence continues to draw curiosity and fear, keeping El Paso High School in the spotlight of paranormal fascination. For those brave enough to explore the school, one question remains. Will you see her, or will she remain just beyond your vision, silently watching as she has for decades? The story of El Paso High School closes with a lingering question, leaving a chilling impression on anyone who hears it. The Lady in White is more than a legend. She is a presence that refuses to be forgotten. Every shadow in the hall, every unexplained chill, and every photograph that reveals her ghostly figure adds to the mystery. Alumni, staff, and visitors alike have come to realize that this is a place where the past never truly leaves, and some spirits may remain, watching silently through the years. As night falls over the historic school, the question that lingers is simple and terrifying. Is she waiting for someone, or is she simply trapped, forever tied to the halls she haunts? Whether skeptic or believer, one thing is certain. El Paso High School is a place where the veil between the living and the dead feels impossibly thin, and the Lady in White's presence is a reminder that some mysteries never fade. The air around Old Milton Elementary School in Illinois has carried whispers for decades. Even though the building has been abandoned for years, locals say it is never truly empty. Long before the paint peeled and the windows shattered, a tragedy occurred that would haunt the school forever. In the 1930s, a young girl named Mary was murdered within these walls. Her life ended violently, but her story did not. People who have entered the empty halls claim they hear faint footsteps when no one is there, doors creak open on their own, and shadows move in ways that seem impossible. Some say the atmosphere is heavier in certain rooms, a coldness that grips the skin and chills the soul. Visitors report fleeting glimpses of a small figure standing at the end of hallways or peering from dark corners. The school, once filled with laughter and learning, now echoes with a past no one can forget. Every step inside feels like crossing a line between the living and the restless spirits that linger, tied to the tragedy of Mary's untimely death. Old Milton Elementary was once a lively place, filled with the laughter and chatter of children. Built in the early 1900s, it served as the heart of the community, where generations of families sent their kids to learn and play. But after Mary's murder in the 1930s, the school's bright energy faded, replaced by a shadow that never left. Teachers and staff who remained after the incident reported strange occurrences almost immediately. Hallways that should have been empty at night seemed to echo with unseen footsteps. Doors would open and close on their own, and objects sometimes moved as if guided by invisible hands. Some claim that if you stand in certain rooms long enough, you can feel a presence watching you, a sense of being followed even when no one is there. The tragedy of Mary's death left a mark, and her spirit, many believe, refuses to move on. Over the decades, stories grew. Whispers of a girl wandering the hallways, shadows flickering just beyond vision, and cold drafts that appear suddenly, freezing anyone nearby. The school itself seems alive, holding onto the memories of the life and horror it has witnessed. Mary's story became more than just a tale told by the locals. It became a warning. People say she was a quiet, sweet girl, known for her curiosity and love of reading. But one day, that curiosity led her into danger within the very walls meant to protect her. The details of her murder were never fully explained, leaving the community with a lingering unease. Over time, those who dared to visit the school after hours began to report strange phenomena that could not be ignored. Footsteps echoed through empty hallways, whispers floated through classrooms, and lockers would slam shut for no reason. Some visitors even described seeing a small figure in old-fashioned clothing, standing silently in corners before vanishing when approached. Teachers and janitors who stayed behind after hours told stories of flickering lights, doors that opened by themselves, and objects appearing in places they had not been. Every account added to the legend, creating a chilling atmosphere that seemed to cling to the building itself. Mary's presence, they say, is strongest where she was last seen. Her spirit trapped between the past and the present, watching, waiting, and reminding everyone that some tragedies never fade. The hallways of Old Milton Elementary hold a weight that is hard to describe, and even during the day, those who pass by the building speak of an uneasy feeling, as if the walls themselves remember the sorrow that unfolded inside. Visitors who step inside report sudden drops in temperature, as though invisible hands push cold air into every corner. Shadows seem to stretch and twist in unnatural ways, often darting just out of sight when looked at directly. Some claim that in the offices and classrooms, objects, books, chairs, even chalk, move without explanation, as if guided by a force unseen. The stairways, once echoing with children's footsteps, now seem to carry their own sounds. Soft, deliberate taps that come and go with no one climbing them. It is here, many believe, that Mary's spirit lingers most strongly, tied to the place where her life was taken. The school is no longer just bricks and paint. It has become a vessel for the energy of those long gone, a place where the past refuses to stay buried and the air itself whispers the stories of tragedy and loss. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike have often focused on the classrooms and hallways, claiming these are the areas where the haunting is strongest. Some report hearing faint giggles of a child when no one is around, while others feel a cold presence brushing past them as they walk. Teachers who once worked late in the building spoke of hearing whispers calling Mary's name, soft at first, then growing louder, as if trying to reach out from the past. Even objects like chairs and books sometimes move without cause, falling or sliding across the floor in the silence of empty rooms. The stairways are said to be particularly unsettling. Footsteps can be heard climbing or descending even when the building is completely empty. Shadows often appear along the walls, disappearing the moment anyone tries to focus on them. Every detail, every sound, seems to echo the tragedy that occurred decades ago, keeping Mary's story alive. The school, once a place of learning, now exists as a labyrinth of restless spirits, leaving anyone who enters to wonder how much of what they see is real, and how much is the lingering sorrow of a life stolen too soon. Over the years, people have tried to capture evidence of the unexplained at Old Milton Elementary, but the results are often more unsettling than conclusive. Cameras sometimes catch fleeting shadows, blurred shapes moving across empty classrooms, or sudden flashes of light that cannot be traced to any source. Audio recordings occasionally reveal faint whispers, cries, or the soft thud of footsteps echoing through halls when no one is there. Paranormal investigators who have spent nights inside the building describe an oppressive feeling, a heavy energy that seems to press down on anyone present. Some claim they have felt the brush of a small hand on their shoulder, or heard a soft sob right behind them. Even the bravest visitors often leave with a sense of being watched, as if unseen eyes are tracking their every move. Locals say Mary's spirit is protective yet restless, tied to the school in a way that prevents her from moving on. Each story, each eerie encounter, only adds layers to the legend, making Old Milton Elementary a place where history, tragedy, and the supernatural collide in a way that continues to chill all who dare to enter. The stories of Old Milton Elementary are not limited to just sounds and shadows. Some claim the school actively interacts with those inside. Visitors have reported doors slamming shut without warning, chairs tipping over as if pushed, and objects moving across the floors as if guided by invisible hands. In certain classrooms, a cold chill is said to settle over the room suddenly, leaving skin numb and breath visible even on warm days. Some who have ventured into the offices or the old library describe seeing fleeting glimpses of a small figure, Mary, peeking around corners before disappearing into thin air. Even people who do not believe in the supernatural often feel an uneasy tension, a sense that the building itself remembers the horrors that occurred decades ago. Hallways echo with memories, stairwells groan under invisible weight, and the air seems heavy with sorrow and unfinished stories. Locals warn that the spirit of Mary is still tied to the school, watching silently, perhaps waiting for someone to uncover the truth of what really happened in those darkened rooms. Local legends about Old Milton Elementary only add to its chilling reputation. Over the years, stories have spread of encounters that cannot be explained by logic. Some say that if you stand in certain hallways long enough, you can hear Mary's laughter echo softly, followed by an eerie silence as if the sound was never really there. Others report seeing shadows of a young girl moving across the walls, or fleeting reflections in broken windows that vanish when looked at directly. Former staff members tell of papers mysteriously rearranged, chalk writing appearing on blackboards by itself, and lights flickering without any electrical cause. Even people passing by the school after dark claim to feel an invisible presence watching them from inside. These stories have become woven into the town's history, a dark thread that connects the past to the present. Mary's spirit, tied to her untimely death, seems unwilling to leave, haunting the school and leaving anyone who dares enter with the lingering sense that some tragedies never truly fade. Today, Old Milton Elementary stands abandoned, its walls crumbling and windows shattered, but the legend refuses to die. The building, once full of life and learning, is now a hollow shell that many believe is still inhabited by Mary's restless spirit. Locals avoid venturing too close after dark, claiming the air around the school feels heavier, colder, as if carrying whispers of the past. Paranormal enthusiasts continue to explore the site, hoping to capture proof of the unexplained. But even they speak of an oppressive feeling, as if unseen eyes are following their every move. The hallways, offices, and stairways that once rang with children's voices are now silent, yet the echoes of tragedy linger. Objects move without explanation, footsteps ring out in empty corridors, and shadows flit across walls where no one stands. Old Milton Elementary is not just a building. It is a vessel of sorrow, a place where the past and the supernatural collide, leaving everyone who enters with the unsettling question: is the school truly empty, or is someone, or something, still waiting inside? The story of Old Milton Elementary ends, or perhaps begins, with a question that chills every visitor to the bone. Would you dare step inside alone? Mary's presence, some say, lingers strongest where her life was taken, her spirit tied to the hallways, stairwells, and classrooms that witnessed her tragedy. Even decades later, the school seems alive in its own dark way, reacting to anyone who enters, keeping the memory of her death and the fear it inspired ever present. Locals whisper that those who venture inside feel watched, hear the soft shuffle of footsteps behind them, or glimpse a shadowy figure out of the corner of their eye. Whether it is grief, unfinished business, or something far more sinister, the legend of Mary continues to haunt Old Milton Elementary. The building may stand abandoned, but the echoes of the past never fade, and the questions remain. Who, or what, still roams the halls? And will anyone ever truly leave the school unscathed by its chilling history?